In October 2012, the government set up a supply chain finance scheme. Small companies that supplied resources to Carillion were paid by the bank instead of Carillion, and Carillion paid the bank back at a later date. This scheme allowed Carillion to defer paying suppliers for longer periods of time as they were having financial difficulties. Although this was technically a form of debt, Carillion classed it under payables on the financial statements, drastically improving the appearance of their cash flow on their financial statements. In March 2013, Standard & Poor's noticed the large increase in payables, however no further action was taken. It is estimated Carillion hid £400 to £500 million worth of debt using this technique.
Financial Reporting Council are responsible for regulating accountants, auditors and actuaries, and their job is to encourage them to produce trustworthy information. In 2015, they identified 12 failings within Carillion's accounts. However, they failed to investigate them any further until 2017, when after challenging them very little, they walked away without taking any serious action. Their intervention ultimately failed to stop Carillion from presenting over-optimistic information in their financial accounts, therefore allowing their situation to continue to deteriorate as their debts built up. The result of this was their problems going unnoticed by the public for 2 years longer than they should have. Had the Financial Reporting Council taken proper action when they should have, the collapse of Carillion may not have been so severe.
Richard Adams served as Carillion's Chief Financial Officer from 2007 to 2016. He played a significant role in committing and covering up the fraud that eventually led to Carillion's collapse. In the report published by the Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy and Work and Pensions Committees regarding Carillion's collapse, it was noted he showed little understanding of the unsustainability of their business model or the fundamental government shortcomings that were the foundations of the firm's issues. He voluntarily left the firm at the end of 2016, selling all of his shares before departing, indicating that in the absence of his questionable accounting techniques, he foresaw the collapse of Carillion.
Construction and service giant Carillion collapsed under $1.3 billion of debt in 2018. The first public sign that the company was in serious trouble was an announcement on the 10th of July 2017, where profits were hit to the tune of £845 million. £375 million of this related to the UK, whereas £470 million referred to the overseas markets. Following this announcement on the 10th of July 2017, shares lost 70% of their value. Although the announcement was the beginning of the end of Carillion, the poor decisions in years leading up to it caused the collapse. This included the deterioration in cash flows on a select number of construction contracts that led the board to undertake an enhanced review of all the group's material contracts. As well as this, borrowing multiplied as over the 8 years from December 2009 to January 2018, the total owed by Carillion in loans increased from £242 million to a massive £1.3 billion. Carillion's debt also rose by 297%, but the value of its long-term assets only grew by a small matter of 14%, so valuable investment was small and improper. The final point to note is that in the 8 years from 2009 to 2016, Carillion paid out £554 million in dividends, 3/4 of the cash it made from operations. This shows that even though debt was increasing, projects were collapsing and profits fell, Carillion still paid out more dividends, worsening the problem which inevitably led to the collapse, occurring far quicker than it probably should have.
On the 15th of January 2018, Carillion was forced into liquidation. Many of Carillion's projects had to be shut down, and with them 43,000 employees' jobs were put at risk. 19,500 of these employees were from the UK alone, and only some of which were able to quickly seek alternative employment, leaving many individuals redundant. Those that had been employed in the company for under 20 years saw a fall in their future retirement funds by 10%. Carillion owed over $2 billion to its 30,000 suppliers, causing many of which to go bankrupt. Carillion's competitors had even seen a fall in their share prices due to concern raised amongst investors about the general outlook for the sector.
Accounting firms such as Deloitte and KPMG failed to alert any senior member to several concerns facing the business. When they examined project costs and profit margins monthly from January 2015 to July 2017, which concerned an $845 million black hole revealed in July 2017, they found management consistently overrode the peer reviews to overlook costs in order to express higher profitability. And following further investigations, findings showed that by 2017, at least 18 of Carillion's projects were loss-making. The contract Carillion also had with Qatar left it with $200 million in unpaid debts. Despite this, there was no provision put in place, and when asked, KPMG failed to recognise the debt on several audits, claiming not to have known whether Carillion were owed $200 million or if they owed $200 million. KPMG's audits were also flagged up by the Financial Reporting Council for insufficient testing of the reliability of the cash flow, as Carillion were reliant on goodwill when valuing assets, as 84% of the balance sheet was made up of goodwill, which disappeared overnight when the company's troubles came to head. However, it noted that not goodwill or impairment was necessary when investigated.